Call them. Sure. Thanks, Karen. We got to read this first, right?
Yes.
Right, you want to read this? This is to formally advise that as required by MGL Chapter 30A, Sections 18 and 25, and pursuant to Chapter 22 of the Acts of 2022, an act relative to extending certain state emergency combination signed into law on July 16, 2022. The Yarmouth Planning Board will hold a public hearing at the date and time noted on the notice of meeting. The public is welcome to attend either in person or via the alternative access provided on the notice of meeting available at town Yarmouth website. So,
Roll call vote,
okay. roll
or
call.
not vote,
Why
but
did
roll
we
call
announce
attendance.
this then? The planning board, because they.
Because planning board's an error, for one thing.
So,
It is, we're the Community and Economic Development Committee,
Okay,
but
so
this is, he's good. He doesn't need to redo anything. But it's to open up the Zoom portion of the meeting, the remotes, to recognize the remote
Right.
rules.
okay. Maria,
Shouldn't I?
Maria Marasco, president.
Joe,
Joe Gibbs here.
Joe,
Bill Manning, present.
Steve O'Neill, present. So we are at the CEDC meeting for everyone that's wants to chime on it. So the first up is gentleman from Mass Development Presentation, Jay Patikos.
That's good.
And you have gotten a little flavor of what we're all about. I'm sure Maria's given you.
Yeah, no, I've
You've
been
heard from
involved
Karen.
with the town for, I mean, I've been with Mass Development for five and a half years, so. You know, from one of the first PACE adoptions, which we'll get into,
Right.
was Yarmouth, to, you know, different calls and emails, and we've got businesses that have reached out about
Okay.
certain grants and stuff, so I know the town of Yarmouth and the chamber president, so.
So when you give your presentation, can you get into some of the nuances? I'll give you an example in just a moment. Some of the differences between programs that a town could apply for, be eligible for, and some that this town might be eligible for. And case in point would be the facade improvement program. It's a gateway city, so we're not a gateway town.
Correct.
So those distinctions would help us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna go through the grant processes that will provide examples of how towns have benefited from it. There's a certain amount of grants that we have. One Stop is the name of the game now. It's the third year
Right.
where all the state grants, for good or bad, go into one portal, so the
Okay.
towns can apply for up to 5 grants for that. So it's a matter of which grants the town needs. I can't get into the specifics of every single grant process, but Mass Development has like the brownfield grants. If you guys needed to, and what we can get into on the slide, if you needed to clean up a contaminated area that you wanted to, you know, resell, get back on the tax roll, we can help. We provide grants for that.
Good.
When it comes to that, we've got a site readiness, which usually is an industrial focus grant. If you've got, you know, sites that are ready to go, an example is like the town of Freetown got money for a road to lead into an industrial park that they were going to be building.
Yeah,
You know, that's something that we help to fund. Technical assistance is another one. That's a small grant, usually between 25 and 50,000,
Yeah.
where the town can apply for, like, you know, diff, you know, to diff financing or to create, you know, just figure out. The town of Westport had an old school. And they're like, what the hell do we do with this old high school? You know, so what we do is you would apply for a grant. It's competitive, but we would then hire a firm for that money to help you, the town, figure out, you know, what would work there. Would it work for housing? Would it not, because of the infrastructure?
We do. We have a Mattakey
Mattakey.
School Committee to decide what to do with that school, and it is, I believe, it owned by the town yard. That's something that it would be very helpful, not, even if the town decided that they didn't want Mass Development's assistance, but Mass Development does have a number of best practices, right? And resources that they could tap into. But I obviously would highly recommend that the town consider working with Mass Development. And just one little point, though, that I want to make about the One Stop that Jay pointed out, which is true, the Commonwealth Consolidated, the portal by which businesses or towns gateway cities can access these various grants. But there's a deadline for an expression of interest. So it is incumbent upon businesses and or municipalities to just, to develop an outline of what they want to do. And then the staff will guide you and say, oh, you know what, it's not really this program, it might be that program, for example.
Yeah, I
Is
mean,
that
the
right,
expression
Jay?
of interest period ended though, but there's every year in December, the one stop will open.
Okay.
And they will ask for expressions of interest, and the key, and I'll give you a great example of an expression of interest. So we had a museum in New Bedford that applied for an underutilized properties grant, which we'll get into, but that's really the most popular grant we have, because it's a little bit for municipalities, mostly for businesses. But they were looking to purchase a building, tear it down, and make a new wing of this museum. Sounds wonderful in downtown Gateway City, except that particular grant is not for ground up construction. It's for taking like what Cape Cod Collaborative did to the old elementary school. I have no idea where it is.
Renovation.
That kind of thing is what that grant is for, taking an existing building, giving it new life, good public purpose. So the EOI provided feedback saying, don't apply. It won't work.
Yep.
So that's the kind of thing. And the municipalities, it's the same thing. The deadline for the 5 grants that you can get feedback for was in February. It was like February 2nd. So you could apply for 5 and get feedback for 5, which is awesome. And then after that period, up till mid-March, they would only do 2. So it's incumbent on the towns, and it's especially on the Cape, it's extremely difficult to get the towns to apply. And I know everybody is like overwhelmed, but even the towns that have like aren't that busy, that have a ton of administrators, like we would call, like especially the first year, I would call and be like, can you guys apply? I mean, because our president is looking at us like, what's going on with the Cape? Like nothing's happening. And we would call, there was actually one town that said, can you give us a project to apply for? Sorry,
They asked you for
that's-
it?
They asked me, literally, that was the question was, can you tell me a project that we can apply for? And it's like, I'm sorry, that's not like, that's not how it works. You have to pick a project that you need to, that you've got life, a plan for, or something
Right,
like that,
right.
based on the grant program. So the due date for the final application now is June 2nd. So there's no more feedback, but they will, you have until June 2nd to apply for the grants
This is
that
this,
we're going to talk about.
oh, all the grants.
Yeah, for one stop, up to 5.
But
you
the
can
one
apply
that you
for.
were just talking to was the underutilized property.
Yep.
Okay, and that's on your website?
Yeah, and I can talk about that, or
Okay.
we can, I mean, we don't need to go by I can click
No, no,
through it,
no, no.
but I mean, we can just talk questions and.
Karen,
Do you want to go through it?
Do you have a
Okay.
remote, or do you have to get it?
I'll do it for you.
did you
Joe,
happen to print it out?
Go ahead.
print it out?
Joe had one.
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't. I'm happy to after the fact, or I can email it to you.
No, oh, I have it. I just
Joe.
didn't print it.
I had 2 questions.
Go ahead.
Last meeting, we were told that we did successfully submit a letter of interest,
I
correct?
think for 1 or 2
For 2.
things.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that you guys didn't. What happens is the deadline was March 17th.
Mhm.
So there were hundreds of applications that came in.
Correct.
So they send us like 30 a week for like a
Okay.
month
Right.
just to go through. So I haven't seen, well, I don't have my laptop with me, but it could be there. I just haven't seen it
And
yet.
from what you're describing,
So she'll get feedback
we
from.
could have applied for 5, we applied for 2.
I think we applied for 2.
Okay. So we could have applied for 5.
Well, I mean, a 5 is a lot,
Right.
depending on, I mean, most towns do not apply for 5. So I didn't want to paint that. I'm just saying it's
Okay.
because it includes like MassWorks grants for
Right.
like infrastructure, $1 million grants,
Mhm.
or it can include really small ones. So it depends. I mean, a couple is awesome. There's
Right.
plenty, I would say probably about 40% that don't apply for many.
Well, I was just kind of making that point because if there's something outside of wastewater that maybe there's not enough bandwidth, then maybe we
Mhm.
could sort of divert some of our resources too while the wastewater
Right.
thing happens.
Right.
The other thing I was going to ask is, do we have a Brownsfield property?
I don't think so.
We don't own anything close to,
Do we, the
The town.
town owned?
the town.
Is there a Brownsfield
I'm-
classified property
not
as
that I'm
we
aware
head
of.
towards Barnstable with the plume from the airport?
Not that I'm aware of, but I
Okay.
can double check for
Because
you.
it's really
Happy to.
close, I think. but-
Yeah, Dennis
Happy
is,
to, but-
is the worst that we know of.
In terms of brownfields.
Yeah, as far as just because of the dry cleaners that
I was
they
gonna
have
say, yeah.
contaminated a
It
lot of the
doesn't have to
land.
be
there.
Manufacturing, it could be.
No,
clearing
it's
and
mostly dry
Right.
clean. It's a lot of it's dry cleaners.
So we do,
Well, you
we do that.
In that regard.
So
dry
beyond-
cleaner, because we have the Yankee Village, former Yankee Village, and the former 17, what's it called, the 1750 house that's at 281 Route 28. They're both down gradient from what was Acme Laundry.
Okay,
And before you go, the two that we did apply for, we spoke last. Bill talked
Those were
about
Bill
last week.
submitted
Yeah.
those.
yes.
Okay, all right. In one-stop shopping, and one more question before.
No, what do we
One-stop shopping is for mass development, all the grants in mass development.
all the state grants, mass development,
No
mass
kidding.
works,
No
Department of Housing and Community Development.
Oh, wow.
It's all, it's to save the municipality's time, but the problem is it provides a portal of just those timelines.
Yeah.
So where Karen could have,
It's tough.
applied for a grant in April and then
Right,
another one in October,
Right.
that's all together now. And we've got some really good grants that should not be in that are
Yeah.
now. So it's like once June 2nd, it's over for 6
Yeah.
months,
Do you
you know?
think there's any kind of thoughts to change that
But you-
timing?
No, and I think they're gonna probably add more
Add to the
grants
portal.
than
It's
anything.
kind of like the Common App.
Yeah,
Okay,
It's been successful. We got in trouble the first couple of years because the feedback wasn't as robust as it should have been. Not we, but everybody, just because Falmouth, I think, tore into me because were not told that their grant, that it didn't qualify. So they went through all the trouble just to find out it didn't qualify after doing the whole
Right.
application. I totally get that. So this year, which is year 3 of One Stop, the feedback has been so robust. Like that one I was telling you about with the museum, it was literally probably 1,000 words of why this didn't qualify, why she shouldn't move forward with the
Mhm.
grant. So every year they're getting better, they're improving on it. With the
Okay.
first year, the thing blew, I think, at 11:59 PM when everybody was applying.
yeah.
So it's definitely gotten better.
All right, Jay, you're up. Thank you. You already
No
given
problem.
us a wealth of information.
I mean, we'll be quick. I mean, this is just the FY 22 numbers, 356 projects, 1.69 billion. So just a little bit about mass development. So there's 2 different sectors. So I'm on the finance side. So we typically finance 3 sectors of the business community: manufacturing companies, any kind of creation of a tangible good. An example on the Cape would be like Knockabout Brewery in Mashpee. We finance that.
nice.
Nonprofits is the second one. So like the Provincetown Monument, we financed that recently for that new elevator thing that goes up. All the like Child and Family Services, Cape Cod Collaborative. We provided a $3 million tax exempt bond for that development
Okay.
in Yarmouth. And then the third and final one where we've been the most busiest is apartment projects. So any apartment project rental, not condo, of 5 or more units is where we get involved. We'll help a bank to finance it, anything. It's the number one priority. It's always been the number one priority. Now with the new governor, it's even more of a priority to especially on the Cape.
Market rate as
To
well.
create more. I mean, market rate we'll take care of out of our Fall River office. When it gets into the affordable spectrum, that's usually Boston office. And there's very rarely an affordable deal down here that we
Right.
touch. If it's not mass housing, it's nothing. The only, in the 5 years I've been there, there's been one affordable deal in the South, and it's been in Brockton. And, he tells me, bring me a good deal and I'll do it. I'm like, okay, but they're so stuck in the Boston area that, it has to be like, I'm hoping like even like a Martha's Vineyard or something, because there's a huge need there too. But that's how that works. And then there's the real estate side, which we talked about, that can provide technical assistance for the municipalities that has these grants that they provide to help, a town. So those are the 2 sections. So I usually deal with the business side of things, and we'll get into a little bit of both. That's, created jobs and housing units for FY 22. You can. That's just kind of what we went through. I mean, we work with banks, manufacturing is tough, especially on the Cape. We try to help where we can. You can keep going, Karen. Some of those pictures are a little dated, but that is the sections that we have. So we all have our territory. The South team goes from the Plainville, Attleboro area all the way to Provincetown. And then we have the Springfield, Worcester, Greater Boston, and Lawrence North area.
Are
can
you
keep
in that
going.
picture in the red shirt?
I am in the red shirt with the guts
Excellent.
sticking out. Yeah, everybody
Stop.
except for Joe. So the last two on the right are the only two left. Yeah. Everybody else has moved on. You can keep going. We kind of talked about
Yeah.
this, the real estate side, technical assistance, development projects and finance. You can keep going, Karen. So I'm not from real estate, so I'll do my best with this stuff, but these are examples for you guys on how we've helped municipalities. So I think.
Yeah, you're
So
gonna help us with a diff,
the-
hopefully.
Yeah, so I think the latest community that we're doing a diff with is Attleboro. And they're going through that process now, but these are some of the examples of how the technical assistance can work. Like I gave you the example, oh, there you go, Maria, Attleboro diff master plan. So like I gave you the example of Westport High School kind of thing. So these are all the ways that we can help. The technical assistance is a small grant I told you about. I think it's a maximum of 50,000. So it's small potatoes. It's just trying to figure out what to do. The key thing is that you guys have to get beyond the point of the town's passion for a building. Like we were in the middle of a Middleborough fiasco where they have a police station that everybody in town has an idea what they want to do with it. We're just here to advise. We're not in the middle of anything going on. We're just telling you, we can help you. We can hire a firm to figure out if housing works at the site or whatever. And it got really sticky. So we try to stay out of that. The new underutilized properties, we kind of touched on that. Municipality, I would say, is probably like a 20% potential. It's usually for businesses, so we want developers. I've got a Yarmouth application for the old dry cleaner, which you probably know. I think it's 697 Route 28. It's an old dry
Okay.
cleaner that they're doing like energy stuff and things like that. We've had talks with a bunch of Yarmouth. I can't remember, it was last year, but this is the most popular grant we have because it's absolute free money. As long as you keep the building and property for 5 years, where some of the other ones are matching. We have a collaborative workspace grant that is matching. So it kind of sucks sometimes because you have to come up with 100,000. With this, the underutilized properties, it's free money. And it's from 50,000 to $1 million have been the awards the first 2 years.
So, what are the, I'm losing my mind, but you know those zones that they had, the federal zones, if you're located. the town-
Opportunities.
Opportunity zones?
Opportunity zones, do you analyze the value of like say an underutilized program if it's in,
We don't get into the opportunity zones.
don't.
No, that's more of like, we let the
MOPD.
lawyers do that. I don't even think MOPD does that, to
oh,
be honest. The opportunity zone stuff kind of started with a blaze and then
Mhm.
died. And now it's like getting less value every year. But we were told to stay out of because we were acting almost like advisors and we're not
Yeah.
tax advisors, you
yeah.
know, and our bosses were like, no more talk about opportunity
Mhm.
zones because we don't want to get in trouble with that.
So with that said, do you have or any knowledge or information about any towns who actually did an assessment of like sort of what they had before they actually came to you and say, you know, this is our outline of all the things we want to do and see whether or not it applied, or
that
are
might be-
they just coming to you with specific projects?
It's usually with specific projects. We like to have, especially with the dollar amount, with the technical assistance. Site readiness goes a little bit higher. I think that goes to like,
Million,
yeah,
did,
it used to. I think it's probably 500, I think now. I think they've cut that back a little bit,
Okay.
but I'd have to check on that.
Yeah.
But usually it's, I mean, like the town of Fairhaven had applied for a grant that for a ton of area along Route 6. It's got like a former drive-in. And this is actually a good example for Yarmouth because you've
Yeah.
got a former everything
yeah,
on Route 28. So it was like a drive-in. It was like even a plaza that was kind of successful, but had some empty buildings.
Yeah.
They incorporated in it and trying to figure out a study of what could actually go there. I'll get you that example
oh, that'd be great.
of that, because that was a big one. But being that I'm from that area and I'm a huge drive-in, and you guys actually had a drive-in for like a year.
Yeah.
It was a mammoth grant, but it provided, I think they're still going through it actually. But it provided examples of what could go into these plazas, what would work now, you know, for stuff like that. And it had provided good vision. Getting back to the underutilized properties, so two different categories. There's a pre-development and there's a build out. So I'll give you an example of Fall River, a old mill building. It had been kept up. It had only been closed for like 6 years. The guy got $900,000 for pre-development to make 203 apartments. So he's going to go back and apply for build out, and he could get more money. So there was one in New Bedford, a nonprofit that took over an old theater, and they were going to do apartments and retail. They got 700,000 and then 900,000. So they got 1.6 million of free money from this program.
Okay.
So it's all about the public purpose. So I tell the story about the landscaper because I had a landscaper that came to me and said, hey, I just bought this abandoned building for my landscaping business. And I'm like, that's awesome, but nobody cares. There's no public purpose. It's just one business. We have to have something where it's a public purpose, like the Franklin Food Pantry bought this 15-year abandoned building to make a ginormous food pantry. Huge need, helping the community. That's a great public purpose. Or apartments, creating, all these office buildings that are now going to be even emptier, they're saying, as the months go on. Figuring out a way to create apartments out of it. It's tough for developers because it wasn't built to be apartments, but it's something where the whole thing, I mean, we had a meeting. I don't know if you ever heard of the Zeitarian Theater in New Bedford. So my boss had never been before, and it was really embarrassing because they have like a $9 million gap. And they're trying to figure out money. And he's like, is there any way for you to get apartments in this place? And I'm like, I born and raised in New Bedford. I'm like, Jesus, really? Apartments? And it's like, no, but that's the example of the focus of apartments. Even in a gateway city, is like, can you get apartments here? And most of the winners have had an apartment focus. Even if it's like, and we love mixed use. If there's business on the first level and apartments on the rest, that's awesome. But that's the kind of thing that we're looking for that. Well, public purpose, manufacturing business that's employing, a lot of people, that might be worth it. We usually have 8 million for that. We have 16 million for that program this year.
So Jay, now that you've been the Cape in your territory for 5.5 years, do you have any personal opinions about why developers are not attracted to the Cape?
Why developers aren't coming to the Cape?
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean, you're talking about projects all off Cape.
No. So the first year of the underutilized properties,
Yeah.
no Cape winners, really pissed me off. Second year, I worked a ton, called every municipality twice, talked to a number of developers. Second year, we had Provincetown got 2. One was the downtown visitor center, who's going to put a couple of apartments up there, but it's a central location. It helps out a ton of people. In Hyannis, it was a 6-room historic house that he was making into 6 apartments.
Oh, yeah, so we know who that is.
No,
Cape Belt.
no, he got 175,000. No, it's another developer. He got 175,000 of unutilized property money for his. It's something. It's not the greatest, but he was one of the ones that was on the maybe pile. And then we got additional funds last year. He was awarded. This year, I'm hoping for more. Who knows? There's a ton. We got a ton of dentists applicants for like Main Street properties that are beat up that they're doing into apartments. So we'll see. I'm not sure if it's, I talked to a ton of developers from the Cape. It's just a matter of, applying. It's a pain. Do they have anybody that can help them?
Well, that's my next question. So eligible entities I see there, but you get a lot of, what's your most, what is the grant, who are the people that go after the grants, I guess? More of a municipality, or is it more of nonprofits, or?
For the underutilized properties?
Yeah,
It's mostly developers.
okay.
There are municipalities started out like with a thumbs up for the first year, but because we already give the municipalities a lot, they wanted it to focus more on developers and businesses. So I'll give you an example, like the town of Mattapoisett has Holy Ghost grounds. It's like this rundown place that the whole town used to gather.
What's it called?
It's a Holy Ghost grounds. And it's like a building that's down in its luck, ready to fall apart.
Right, the one with birds are in it and everything?
Yeah, so they're applying for the underutilized properties to fix that building up, make it into an event and gathering center
Yeah.
for the town.
Yeah.
Now, that's one of those rare underutilized properties where it's serving a huge public purpose.
Right.
I mean, people are gonna rent it, people are gonna gather there. It's gonna be great. So, I mean, I don't know if it's gonna get it, but I think it's gonna be competitive. They don't want municipalities applying for an abandoned building to build a council on aging. You have your own financing mechanisms. You find a way to get that done. That's not what this grant is for. It's for something where you're creating like a gathering, something with a huge public purpose. I know the Council on Aging, no offense to them, is a public purpose, but the
Well,
town has its
library.
own,
Same deal.
probably the same deal, I would say, yeah. It's a slippery slope, just that grant. That's the only grant I'm talking about is the underutilized properties. That's the one that it's possible, but it's sticky. And that's where I would suggest if Yarmouth is interested, we bring my underutilized properties person and we'll do a Zoom call and she'll answer the questions. I mean, I've been through this. This is my third year with the underutilized properties. So I've been through a lot and I've had a lot that have awarded and some that haven't. So I kind of see where they're coming from, but the municipalities are usually a little bit tough because you got to get that public purpose kind of thing and that you can keep going.
But,
Oops, sorry.
but the public purpose, I mean, how do you cross that threshold for public purpose for building a private developer building rental units?
Because it's a huge public purpose because apartments are the number one
It's
priority.
housing.
Okay.
So that's the thing. And it's tough, because I know there's some communities that don't want anymore.
What
Yeah.
other,
You know?
what are, like, so aside from housing, what are other common public purposes? So you've said like gathering places. but-
Human service, provider is something that's
Okay.
going to be helping out like a child and family services or something where, they're looking for, some kind of situation where they can build something in a central location. It's about like location. So if it's on a dead end street, forget it. It's got to be on a main drag. So Route 28 would be great. It's got to be, accessible. It's got to be in a main, thoroughfare, but it's got to be something where it's not just one business.
Yeah.
So is it that the nonprofit has to be owner or a tenant?
Owner only.
Owner.
It's only
Owner.
owners.
Okay.
It's only owners.
Okay.
Because everything is, and the thing is, it's not dealing with dream scenario. So if you're like a nonprofit that still has $2 million to raise, you're not getting it.
Okay.
Because we want this to be done hopefully by June of 2024. It can be extended, but we don't want you to still have to raise money. You have to have your financing in place to make sure that this is happening. And the town has to provide a letter of support. So
Yeah.
we had a town that the guy applied for $1 million and the town's like, there's no way he's fitting that many apartments in that building. So you can imagine what happened with that application.
Yeah.
So like we have what's it called? Thatcher Hall. It's the former New Church up on Route 6A.
Mhm.
And it's a kind of arts-based community center of sorts. They need to, and I only know about this because, they've been inquiring too about CPA funds, but accessibility improvements.
It's a good one. I mean, accessibility, we have like the old mill in Taunton and Reed and Barton where they used to make all that silverware and the Olympic medals and all that stuff. They have elevators that aren't working.
Okay.
So they've applied and it's 175,000 for an elevator. It looks pretty good, for us to, help, something like that. As long as you have a plan, like if you
Right.
know if you're just building an elevator to nowhere,
No,
it's not gonna, who cares? It's
Right.
gotta be like, we're planning on doing apartments on the second
Right.
floor. Or
Right.
we've got businesses that, will be coming on the second floor or
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah.
So definitely accessibility,
Mhm.
things like that is what we're looking for. And, like our president is all into the Cape. The more I think that the Cape applied, I think the more they would get,
Yeah.
especially the housing stuff.
And not just
Okay.
Barnstable.
No, and you know what? The whole Barnstable thing, they're the only ones that have come to us. So you know what?
Right.
Like, I've talked to
Squeaky
all
wheel.
these other towns like Orleans and I've talked to Yarmouth developers and Dennis. But the Barnstable ones are the only ones that got to that point where they're like, we're ready to go. Can you help us finance this? Whether it's Rob Brennan, whether it's the Housing Assistance Corps, whether it was that old nursing home on Falmouth Road
Mhm.
that we financed, those are the ones that came to us and because it's a gateway city, they got a little bit of a discount in a rate. And that's the only one on the Cape. But I mean, they came to us and asked about the financing. So we don't, I've said this before, I don't want to just do Barnstable. I would want to do every town. I'm tired.
They were very engaged when I was.
I'm just tired
at
of
MOPD.
Barnstable.
So
It's a
they-
great community, but it's
they
like,
were- Wanted it. They
the
wanted
houses too.
to
Yeah.
make something happen.
this is just the other program, the site readiness, where I gave you an example of the road that we financed into an industrial park.
Yeah.
This is one of those that I would dig into a little bit more, if not this year, next year. It's not as competitive as underutilized properties. So it would be something that, you know, we could get our real estate person on a Zoom call too, to talk a little bit more about the site readiness program. It's kind of just trying to get this land, you know, municipally owned back on the tax roll. You know, just ways to figure out how to get it. I mean, we've got one town that applied to build a road to an affordable housing complex. You know, and that's something that used to not be part of this deal that now is because of the apartment need. And real estate will not allow me to put that into the slide, but that's
The
what's
infrastructure.
what's
piece.
going on now, is that there's a housing focus for this too. You can
That's good
keep
to know.
going on that,
Writing down.
no problem. So these are just examples. I was not part of this, but this is just an example of like the technical assistance, the high-end parking study, you know, and the goals of what, you know, it produced and stuff, bringing back memories. Maria?
Yeah, all the employees were parking on Main Street. So
Yeah.
it's like, oh. guess what?
Serious?
Yeah, that
Wow,
was one of the findings anyway. I remember. I laughed. I thought,
that's funny.
It's amazing though, some of these parking studies we do where they find that there's plenty of parking
Right.
yeah.
and people just
They don't
don't want to
wanna
walk. Yeah.
Everyone want to be doing
It's
that.
actually pretty funny. Attleboro is another one. They're gonna be doing another one, and there's so much parking that people are gonna be stunned.
The odd thing about it is people, they don't realize that there's a contribution from the municipality toward a parking garage, and the state's giving us some money. They're paying for that parking garage.
Yep.
Even though, you know, they want to park in front of
Oh, yeah.
their store.
You can keep going, Karen,
Okay.
on that. This is just another, so yeah,
Yeah, this would be.
this was a good one too. And we're going through one for a diff master plan for Attleboro. That was one of the newest. And I can send you these.
This, yeah, a scope would be great.
Yeah, I
Here's
mean,
here's my ignorance about, is there a plan for Route 28?
A plan?
Yeah. Other
We're
than the districts that we've,
not we're working on the local comprehensive plan, but right now the plan would be the latest zoning, which was the Village Center Overlay District, which focused,
so that would qualify for this funding.
we could get local comprehensive plan funding through this, Jay?
yeah, I believe so.
Okay. But this, so the timing on this though?
Same thing.
Same thing,
June 2nd.
Okay. So we're just about to put out an RFP. So,
And the town already
Well,
approved the
but you
money.
know what
right?
I'm saying
Yes.
is that an RFP where the state would have.
no,
paid
I
for it.
understand. Yeah,
This is what I'm saying.
we may not have enough money to do what we need to do, so this will be a good thing. You good, Jay?
Yeah. you
Well,
keep going.
okay, let me back up. So the expression of interest, as far as you understand it, is that enough? You have to do that in
No.
order? Okay, you don't have to do that. You could just go roll the dice and apply and see if it hits. Thank you, Jay.
But that would be with, what was the deadline
By
for the,
June 2nd.
June
Oh,
2nd.
that's
So
June
the expression
2nd?
of interest is something that they recommend only for the feedback. There are people that we've talked to that haven't applied, they can't, they can still apply by June
We can
2nd.
still do
Okay.
that. So
You
we
just,
can
there
look
won't be
into
any
that.
feedback. Like you said, roll the dice.
So we could apply for 5 by June 2nd.
as long as we can get the work in,
Right.
so.
all right, well,
That's a good
you're not
distinction.
asking for volunteers, but I certainly
No, we all want.
can, yeah, we could all take a piece.
Yep.
So we could help get it in.
You can keep going.
You good?
So this was what we talked about. So for a municipality, it's a grant unless you sell the property and make money, then we want our money back. But otherwise, if you're doing it to clean it up, to, you know, create a park or something like that, we won't ask for the money back. For businesses, it does cost. So the assessment would be a 0% loan that we would provide. And then remediation would be a regular bank loan to clean it up.
Is it 100% of the remediation?
Yep.
It is. Holy mackerel.
And it's usually, the banks love that when we do a bank presentation because they don't like to touch that stuff.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So
100% of it.
It's a hugely successful
Oh,
program.
man.
it's, yeah, it's definitely, it's been over extended many times.
Mhm.
Right now, they're in the process of coming up with examples on why it should be more heavily funded, because we go through that pretty quick.
Oh, imagine you do, yeah.
That should be good, Karen, on that. So this was a North Attleboro recoverable grant, 81,000. You can say it, but it's built in 1880, served as a silver plating. I mean, North Attleboro and Attleboro
Yeah.
are like the dentists. They're just so much contamination from the jewelry manufacturers
Mhm.
over the years. There's so many different sites that they need to get.
Was that dry cleaner in Dennis?
Dry cleaner was in Yarmouth.
There's one it was in Yarmouth. That's where.
697.
the Trial is.
697.
But 697 is the one on the south side, and that's opposite like Bass River Sports World. It's on the corner of Pine Grove, I think. Is it the corner?
Oh,
of
that's a
Pine Grove?
laundromat.
No,
Yeah, it was a laundromat, not a dry
Yeah,
cleaner.
that's-
you were referencing Dennis as being dirty and as a result of.
Number of dry cleaners, none that come off the top of my, we've had meetings with all the Cape towns. And we always talk about brownfield, and most of the towns like Sandwich, Mashpee, we're clean. Dennis has a number of, they've got gas station contaminations. They've got dry cleaner contaminations. So we've dealt with them as far as, trying to clean up some of those sites. But if it's owned by something other than the town, if they haven't taken it back by tax, so there's not much they can do, to help out on that end. You can keep
Good.
going. Yep. So this is an example of a business assistance. So we provided a zero interest 11,500 site assessment loan to figure out the contamination for an old manufacturing mill in Attleboro. So that site just became 43 apartments, and it's 1 block away from the commuter rail.
Wow.
Transit-oriented development.
Yep. You can keep going, Karen. I mean, this is just crap. It's just how we help with the financing. We work with banks. We like the bank to, tell us what they want us to do. So like, Maria brought up Sea Captain's Row in Barnstable. So it was a $12 million deal. We did 7 million. Bank 5 did 5 million. So we like to partner. That was like way more money than we want to spend on one development. We would love to do $1 million housing projects here and there. We don't want to throw 7 million again. That was the most
Yeah.
the South has ever spent on a loan, was that Barnstable development. But we just, the banks, the tax exempt bond. So that's just a glorified loan. Nonprofits qualify all day long. So Cape Cod Collaborative, they got a $3 million tax exempt bond. It's 21% cheaper than a loan. So if you're a nonprofit and you go to Cape Cod 5 and they say, we'll give you 6% loan, if you qualify for a tax exempt bond, it's like 4.8. So it's a hell of a savings as long as they qualify.
Right, but to do a tax exempt bond, there's gotta be a dollar amount.
$1 million or
Million.
more. Yes.
And that's because the upfront costs of getting bond counsel.
Yep.
To present it and prepare it is expensive, so.
Yep.
You're saying $1 million.
Yeah. So it's $1 million minimum. And usually if there's a nonprofit that's going to be paying this off in like 2 to 3 years, go to a bank, because after the 3rd year is when you start really recouping the 21% discount. None of us work on commission. So if you find a better deal somewhere else, have a ball.
Great.
But with the tax exempt bond, like the Cape Cod YMCA was, I think it was like a $5 million tax exempt bond. They're going to keep that shit out for like years. So that's like 21% savings for a long time. So as long as they qualify, it works.
Yeah, what's nice about the tax exempt bond, for some projects, you can roll in, like, so while it's being built and you have no revenue stream, no income stream to pay for the loan, they'll
Yeah.
Yeah.
front load it.
Yeah.
So
I can't
they'll-
remember the
they'll
name of
pay
that
your pay.
bond, but it'll come to me. after.
Yeah, there's certain criteria.
Drawdown bond.
You do the loan guarantees as well.
Yeah, so that's something like I was talking about, well, I don't know if I talked about that here or not, but so we had a bakery in New Bedford. I was telling you about it, Shareks, and they moved to Wareham and they needed $3 million and the bank was like, no way. So then we came in and we guaranteed $1 million
You guys guaranteed them. Okay.
so that if this bank went under, I mean, if this business went under the next day, thank God, they can't
I
even say
think
that.
was a Freudian slip.
It goes back to the state.
We would cut him a check, we would cut the bank a check for $1 million to mitigate their risk.
Yep.
So they love it. So they gave him a $3 million loan that all came from that bank, and we just guaranteed $1 million.
Million other loan, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And that's our most, it's our most popular program. It was not popular when the economy was good because the banks were just doing whatever they want because money was falling out of the sky kind of thing. Now that the economy is where it's at, we're getting a lot of calls about this
Yeah.
because they do not want to do 85 or 90% loan to value anymore. They want to do like 50,
50,
60%.
okay.
So we're getting a lot of calls on
All
that.
right, that's good to know.
You can keep going, Karen.
Oops.
And that's, I mean, that's fine. I mean, the bond thing, we don't need to get into too much. I mean, that's the affordable housing, which comes from our Boston area. They want you to do the 4% tax credits.
Right.
So it gets a little murky. That's why, Boston takes care of that part of thing. You can keep going.
Is that a lettuce that we're looking at there growing?
Yeah, that is capabilities.
Is it really?
So we finance
I was being a wise
capabilities.
guy. I
Yeah,
thought it might be
there you go.
something else.
Capabilities, farm to table.
Smoke.
Where's farm to table?
Is it Yarmouth? It was Yarmouth.
Yeah, it's on 6A.
But isn't that Dennis?
No.
I thought it was right in Dennis.
Crossover? It could be.
The
I mean,
It's
capabilities
I'm
right
always
close to
reading,
the.
right.
capabilities
line there.
farm is in Dennis, but farm to table, I don't know that.
I think it is in Dennis. but-
Yeah, and just before I forget, because it's not on this slide, but so that old restaurant down the street that I drove by,
Right, the Riverway.
the Riverway. So that was and you guys
Family
probably don't
table
like that because I think
collaborative.
it's off the tax roll now. But that was a collaborative workspace grant that we
Okay.
provided them to do that, like community
Yeah,
kitchen thing there.
that's
So
great.
we gave them
I just missed
funding.
my restaurant.
Me too.
Yeah, sorry. So we
that-
provided,
That qualified as a collaborative workspace.
yeah,
Not-
because they
not
like the
a cage
kitchen.
Space model,
Yeah.
It's a lot of different
community
things.
kitchen.
And it was amazing to me, like when
It's
I
a
was
bunch of
learning this,
things.
how many can go into
Yeah.
collaborative workspace, musical, art, mechanical.
Mm.
The food thing is going crazy because there is no place for these people to bake their stuff.
Right.
So I've got this poor lady in Brockton that's driving to Dorchester to do her
Wow.
teas because there's nowhere else around there to do it. So definitely the Cape, there's a huge need for that. Manufacturing facilities, it's a little bit murkier for tax exempt bond. You're gonna have like at least 75% core manufacturing taking off. Very, very rare for that to go on. You can keep going. I mean, those are like we kind of got into already.
Yeah.
Loan guarantees, you can keep going. Okay, so this is the new program that just started, the federal program that I think I touched on right at the beginning. So how it works, it's $15 million that we received to lend out. It's preferred to be a SETI, socially, economically disadvantaged community. It doesn't have to be. That bakery that I told you about with the $1 million guarantee, that was a SSBCI guarantee that we provided. It's something where we have the capacity to lower the interest rate on the half of our loan. They've given examples, although lenders, to be honest, are really a pain in the ass because they will not talk about the discounted rate. The whole thing of why this is important. This is like free money for us. We're given $15 million. How much do we need to make off this money? This is ridiculous. So the example that they give to banks is a 2%. So say you are Cape Cod 5, it's a $3 million loan. You're going to do 1.5 million at your 6.5%. Mass development can come in and actually we could do 100% loan to value, which is as rare as they come. We can discount our rate to make the loan work. So it could be 2, it could be 3. I can't get my lender to say discounted rate when we have a presentation, which is because it's like, we've only had one closing so far. And our CEO is like, what the hell? Like, why isn't, and it's like, because nobody's saying discounted rate. That's the whole thing, is if we could get this out by like, hey, 2% rate for your 1 million, is that pretty good?
Yeah.
You're never gonna get that anywhere else, right? So that's the thing, but this is the makeup of it, and where it gets tricky is, so it's not for housing, because it has to be 51% owner occupied for existing buildings. So that was a problem because most of the developers can't make their numbers work anymore. And that would have been perfect, but this is the federal government. Who knows why they do what they do? So it's basically businesses where you take up more than 51% of the building. And if it's improvements, renovations, any kind of new equipment, it can be part of that and it would be split with a bank. So we need a bank. So if you were a business that no bank would touch, and we've got one right now in Martha's Vineyard, I've introduced to 5 different banks and no bank will touch them. We can't help you. You know, it has to be 50% bank, 50% us. But it's a new program that hopefully will take off. We're trying.
Well, that's the American Rescue Plan. Okay.
Gotcha.
You can keep going, Karen. That's just the eligibility, $2 million for real estate improvements, equipment loans, guarantees. You notice they don't say anything about rates. Next one. So PACE, you guys have already adopted, but you guys adopted it early. We have not had, I think 697, Route 28 has talked to us about PACE. There's been a couple that we've gotten from the town. It's basically how it works is it's $250,000 or more. So it's not mom and pop businesses. It's if you have a business where you're going to do improvements, you're going to add like solar panels, you're going to put new windows, new doors, HVAC system, whatever. Anything over 250,000, what it does is it has the capacity to spread the payments out over 20 years. So if it's a business that's making tons of money that will pay this off, it's not really worth it. But if it's a business that needs the cash flow, that doesn't want to be spending that much, it goes on the tax bill. So that's why the town is involved. So the town accountant will put the bill on your tax bill and you will pay it 4 times a year. The town gets that money, pays us, we pay the capital provider. So the advantage of it is spreading the payments out. It's a competitive rate. I mean, it'll be like a bank loan, but most banks are 5 to 7 years max.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have significant, improvements to make and you can spread that over 20 years, then it's a huge advantage to do.
Is it a fixed rate? Or does
Yeah.
it-
Well, it depends, but yeah, they've been fixed. The ones, we've only had 3 closings because we've been doing soft openings. We have 2, one in the Greenfield area was the first one, and then 2 in Boston. So it's something where we're still looking for the South example. And we haven't done a huge marketing thing because we're trying to work out the kinks. We've got a bunch coming. Newton is going to be the next one. So it's a slow going because we don't have that many employees. We've got one person who does the businesses, one person that does the municipalities. Yarmouth was one of the first communities in the state to adopt it.
That's a while ago.
Barnstable and Wellfleet are the only other 2 on the Cape that have applied.
Do you have any programs that would help a business hook up to sewer?
Probably not. I mean, that might be something with MassWorks.
Okay, and do you have anything, so let's say a restaurant wanted to put in their own wastewater treatment, Cape Cod Potato Chips has their own wastewater
Mhm.
facility. Could you finance a wastewater treatment?
I mean, we could look into it. It might be something, especially with the SSBCI, that we could finance. We usually don't get into the wastewater systems. It's usually something that's collateral based, but it's definitely something that we could look into for sure.
Easton did a public-private partnership. So, anyway. And
Yeah.
part of the wastewater was to support a public project, like it was affordable housing. So part of it went, so anyway.
Yeah, I mean, that
I can-
Maria might be better for MassWorks, like an example of, and this is a funny one because, so there's a Rochester development and I talked to the developer and I was like, hey, have you ever thought of MassWorks? The town would apply for MassWorks and it would provide infrastructure financing for him to get tied into the sewer, like on a main road or something like that. So fast forward, I see the announcement, he got 800,000 from MassWorks for his development, right? So like, of course, we can't accept gifts or anything, but I want him to know that I helped. So I was like, hey, congratulations, I heard you. And he's like, oh yeah, thanks for the heads up. And he's like, oh, and now I need Marion to do it.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of example, the town would have to do it. The town would have to do it through, would have to do it through their own mechanisms for the development. But it's a big plus, especially for affordable housing, if that's what you guys want.
Mm.
You can keep going. So this was the development that we talked about. It started with a $412,000 pre-development remediation where they had those old sea captains' houses where the homeless were living in and starting fires inside the building. So we helped fund that to be destroyed and then to build the 6.6 million dollar permanent loan for 44
Nice
units.
rendering.
You can keep going on that. So this was the tax exempt bond that I told you guys about for the elevate. I think it's a better name for it, not elevate, inclined elevator.
Oh, the funicular.
Is that what they call it?
It's a
For,
funicular.
so the people can not have to walk all the way up the hill or down the hill. So that was a $4.5 million nonprofit, and that's something where they're gonna take years to pay that off, right? So that worked out really well for them.
I'm offended by that.
What?
Which part?
It's just because people are too lazy to walk up the hill.
Oh, I
I
didn't
love
hit,
that.
did I?
hill.
Well,
Did you say that? I didn't say lazy. I gotta be careful with my words, but I didn't say lazy.
No, I just said it.
Oh,
He said
okay.
it, Joe said it.
I was just out there and I'm looking at it and I heard it cost $5 million and I'm like, can you
Yeah.
just walk up the
I
driveway?
think it's good for people who can't make it up the hill on their own.
Wheelchairs and stuff.
Yeah, older folks.
No,
but
I get
$1
it,
million
that you
person.
could always hide under the accessibility
You
of
need
it,
more
and
people to
that's
get that
for sure,
per
but-
person cost down.
You can keep going on that. I don't know how many more examples I have. So this was the why that we did the bond on. That was the first. So the Cape Cod banks have been a little difficult in not knowing how to deal with mass development.
Mm,
That was one of the things that I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So the Cooperative Bank of Cape Cod did their first
Mhm.
bond for the Provincetown Monument. This was Cape Cod 5's first bond for the Cape Cod Y.
Was it
So
fun?
they're learning. They're still tough. Poor Joe. He's still, our tax exempt bond guy is demented and he's trying to work on a Martha's Vineyard deal. And the Cape banks are driving him crazy. So it's just tough. They're still just trying to
remind
see.
me to give you my contact.
Karen,
The five,
it's
they
only
told me
because
that
there's
they
not a
approved my
stairway
project, so.
that's
um,
adjacent to it.
I know.
You can keep going. I don't know how much more.
Stairs and shame all the people that are taking the tram.
Oh, I do it all.
So,
Lazy.
I think there might be one or two more, but
Yeah.
do you have any more? Yeah, and this is the one in your town. This took us a while.
And it looks great.
Yeah, he did a good job. He
Yeah.
was a tough sell, and I like those though. He knows what he wants, and it was it's actually funny because I went to that school for some training. It was a finance course before he took over, so I was able
Wow.
to see the before and after. Although it looked beautiful.
Through
but-
BSU?
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah. yeah, and that was a $3 million tax exempt bond for that. But that would also, I mean, if that would be an example of an unutilized properties, if BSU wasn't in there, you know, taking an old school, giving it new life, good public purpose. You
Well,
know,
and that's
kind
what
of thing.
they, I mean, for people who don't know, so BSU kind of built out 25% of it and the collaboratives
Yeah.
finished out with the other 7.
Isn't that president from Yarmouth or something? Is that why the
It was-
BSU or?
BSU, it was the president. He had a Cape Cod connection, strong
Okay.
Cape Cod connections, I think. with
It's always a Cape
BSU.
Cod connection.
There
It's the
is.
same thing with Bank 5. You see all the stuff with Bank 5? It's because the president came from the Coop. So this, it's weird because I'm like,
Cape
why are
is
they,
nice.
why are they on the Cape now? But it's, they've been actually our best partner. I don't know if there's
Good.
any more after that. Yeah. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, no
so,
problem.
Fantastic.
Any questions or sorry if
no,
I went
we're
over?
about to embark, I mean, if our town approves a massive wastewater infrastructure project along Route 28, so that should actually, it's supposed to run fire. So what will be very important is to help our businesses, I'm sure you've already done it through the chamber, but to know sort of all the things that could be available in their toolbox, right? When the programs that would actually make a lot of sense. So obviously, site readiness makes a lot of sense for abandoned, if you will, or very rundown properties.
Underutilized.
Underutilized. And then, but if we could start teeing them up and help to identify, you know, what might be a good fit, not a guarantee that it would be a good fit.
Yeah.
I think that would be very good for a marketing plan to start attracting businesses or have them just contact you and say, you know, have you ever thought about?
Yeah, we do that a lot. So that's not a big deal.
Has the
People,
chamber from Yarmouth contacted you?
not this year, no.
Okay. All right.
Prior years I've talked to Mary.
Yeah, I
Good idea. Get
I know that
updated.
Mary's been, but maybe that's something we could drill in on together.
Yeah, yeah.
And the list of properties from the ones that the town owns, I do have a list of them, but if you want to just find out which ones let's see, on Route 28 first, that would be helpful. I know we own a lot of property off of Buck Island and other places.
Okay, anything else, or sorry if I went over?
No, you didn't, I thought that was great, thank you, Jay.
No, this is very, very helpful.
No problem, and I mean,
Jay,
you've got my
thank you.
card, text me, email me anytime.
Okay, so with regard to the local comprehensive plan, that's we understand that that has to go through the portal.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk to my real estate person just to make sure I have that right before you do anything else.
Okay,
I just want to make sure, because
Sure.
I'm not from the real estate side. I want to make sure that I give you the right answer. I think
Thank you.
it would,
Alright.
but I'll talk to
right,
Amanda.
but I think too, if you have any, if Amanda, okay.
It's another Amanda, though. I don't know if you,
Okay.
it's not that Amanda that was up there. It was another Amanda that we hired for real
Okay,
estate.
but I mean, if she
But-
needed to clarify exactly what is planned.
Yeah, and
That would be
she
helpful.
would be a good call for you too, because, we just did a churro call. And that was one where they have 40 acres of land that they're looking to develop, and they have no idea what they're gonna do. And we were just on the call to listen, but I provided a example of how we helped with a plot like that.
Is it the landfill?
No,
Okay,
no, it wasn't a
Good, all right,
landfill.
just-
It's
Just
beautiful.
checking.
It's beautiful land that they're looking to
Wow.
develop. So I looked at something that we had done in the past where it was like a good public-private relationship. So I was able to provide them an
Um,
example to go on. So, and we could do the same for you guys.
I hope I'm not, well, on behalf of myself and maybe and the other members, because we've had this working relations for a long, long time. If anything pops in your mind that says, that would really help Yarmouth, get the ball rolling.
Sure.
I really appreciate, just think out of the box, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Contact
absolutely.
me and or Steve
Yeah,
and, or obviously Karen, and we'll,
Sure. I mean, if you think about it, you've got almost 2 months to
Mhm.
apply. So if there's
for anything,
else,
for any program,
any of the
Oh,
one-stop
3 more.
programs.
We can,
right?
No, it's,
we get 5. We got 2 in already, right?
I
yeah.
think that's.
Well, no, you don't have any in. That was just for expression of interest.
Oh, okay.
You have to apply after May 1st
Okay,
for the grants. So,
okay.
Okay.
No, this is
All
very
right.
helpful. Thank you very much.
No problem.
I Appreciate it.
Thank you.
no, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Jay.
Nice meeting you guys.
You're the
Nice
best.
to meet you.
Dan Rivera, he's the best. Yes.
See you later.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, that was very helpful. Good. Nice job. Next up, Tourism Revenue Preservation Fund, town meeting preparation, A. So on our package, on the next page, we have the article that will be appearing at the April 25th meeting, right? Article 27, appropriate tourism revenue preservation fund. And this is what we all voted on a few weeks back, right?
Yeah, so Karen, if we can, okay, so under this economic development projects, if one of these programs required matching funds, would we be able to pull it out of that, or do you think we'd have to have a separate line item? Matching funds.
For
I'm just
which
saying,
program?
I don't know, just say, sometimes all of these grants have
Could-
matching funds.
Is your question just, can we use
Yeah,
this
can we-
budget
yeah.
for
Take it out
matching
of-
funds?
Yeah.
As long as, so I was mentioning to Steve, as long as the program is consistent with
Got it.
the special legislation. That's what I would say.
Okay.
I don't see why not.
Good, terrific.
Yeah.
But the selectmen will move that article, the selectmen will explain that article, reading the explanation basically that's typed up there. And then Steve will answer any questions.
If you can.
And if he can't answer them, I will.
Karen,
What was the,
What was it,
Do you have-
dissenting? I'm sorry, go ahead, Joe. Go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, what was the issue with the dissenting vote?
You know what? I didn't even notice that. I will find out.
Yeah, can we?
I will find out.
Before the.
I will find out.
Because this is.
Thank you.
Likely to get up and.
Yeah, I think that we have another vote that wasn't what we really wanted from the FinCom as well. It's still in favor,
Of-
which is
for us
a
or
good
for the
thing.
town in
This
general?
was for one of the CPA
Okay,
articles.
really?
Yeah, so I'll find out. Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't notice that. Good catch.
Yeah, let us know. Okay, so that's it.
And your memo, you're happy with your memo?
That memo's come and gone.
Oh,
So
okay,
just
that's
what I
good.
was trying to do, and I have more, I'll show you what I was gonna do, is I think we did a run through, a town meeting run through. Because we have a new process where everything is on the slides. It's really nice and organized. It's very uniform. So every article shows on the screen, and it stays up while we're discussing it, so everybody's on one page. If we need extra slides to explain things or explain what we've done, that's what I'm working on right now.
Okay,
And so just the other pieces that are in here for you guys, so that you understand this too, and that you can answer these questions if anyone asks you. There's the allocation formula. How did we get to this number? It's, formula based off of the rooms tax, excluding the short-term rentals this year, and 10% of the prior year meal tax. The memo is what went kind of ahead of time. I think that they want additional details on maybe past spending. So that's what I started working on today, going through all of the old budgets and things like that. I'll show you just on the screen. So here's an example of what we can do.
I'm sorry, who wanted?
I think the FinCom, when I talked to the FinCom chair about the CPA article, she was just saying, additional details on spending. But things like this, I started a little table. These are some of the items on which you've spent some of the tourism funds. So the roadway banners, beautification team, drive-in site, Packet Landing. That's not the cleaning or maintenance. That's like the cupola and the renovations that happened. Some signage, utility box wraps, the ice skating rink, sand sculpture trail, the boardwalk repairs, invasive species, fencing, Parkers River Bridge stuff, and the information boards, both at the high school and 424 Route 28. I just thought I'd break this out into categories of spending. Economic development studies, I'll get some more detail on the stuff that Bill's been doing. Parking, some of these are small, but the parking tag marketing project you did last year. I'm meeting with Mary Vilbon tomorrow to start talking about contract renewal, and we'll talk about contract deliverables. The other thing that's up here, hold on a second. Meant to get this into your packet because I had printed it. That's why Kathy came in. She stole it off the printer. But here's all the special event awards. I quickly counted them. There's about 127 awards that have been made for a total of, $1.5 million. So that's a lot of, a lot of programming and spending that the fund has afforded.
when you get that done.
Oh, absolutely. I'll send it to everybody. And Steve, we can sit down and go over.
Yeah.
I gave you the special legislation. It's just important to be familiar with it, understand. Again, kind of to Maria's question, is something allowable? I defer to the special legislation and look at that.
Yeah.
And then I have the next page is just the amendment that was made. And then I included for you the history of all of the appropriations that have been made for the tourism fund. $5 million. And then we just have the most current budget.
Now, that special legislation still needs to be enacted by the legislature, correct? Before it goes into
The
effect?
amendment. Yes,
amendment.
yes.
So now, just on a side note on that, so our current fiscal year appropriation was minus the short-term rental, right?
That's correct.
So if this,
No, the current fiscal year, if 2023 is the current fiscal year, that included the short-term rental.
so the budget that we're
it's-
operating under now
Correct,
did
correct.
include the short-term.
But going forward for 24, because we know it's in process, it is exclusive of the short-term rental.
All right, I was just curious about, hadn't included the short-term rental, I was gonna say if that legislation isn't enacted by
I think-
July 1, then
Right. I think that questions come up. I will share it with the town administrator. I think that the wastewater budget is relying on that short-term rental revenue. And that's a consideration, but I see your point.
well, right, but yeah, because the current legislation would say that it needs to go to the tourism fund if it's not
Mhm,
modified by the legislature.
mhm.
So I could provide an update on that if it's appropriate right now.
Cool, yes, sir.
So I did speak to Representative Flanagan. And
Mhm.
I believe that there's a provision in the bill that includes some communication back from the Hill to the town
Mhm.
such that they're aware that
Mhm.
the money's going to be used as they're directing. Not going to be.
Is this additional information from what you previously communicated?
I
or
just
is it-
talked to him yesterday.
Okay, so this is something new.
Yeah, so apparently there's some communication that has to happen between the town and the legislature in order for the town to ensure that the money's being used how they have intended it to be used. So that's going on right now.
Okay,
There's no deviation from my previous update that it's going to get done before July 1st. So we're not
Okay.
gonna get the money.
We're not gonna get it.
no. But the good news is you have 500 and something $1,000 to work with.
585,000.
Yeah, seems to be
Pretty
trending,
healthy.
seems to be trending.
No kidding.
Do you anticipate anybody, be able, that we aren't doing enough? The CEDC is not doing enough for the money that we have. Anybody hearing anything?
Well, that's why I joined
Yeah.
the CEDC. But I don't think there's anything specifically,
Okay.
and I mean, have you?
No, I'm just wondering, it's like you said, it's a healthy amount of money. And if we're not up to making something, and I'm sure we are, making recommendations on how to use it, then someone's gonna look over here and say, I can use that,
I think it's just important to be clear, and that's why I think it's healthy. I think we got away from with the budget. With having kind of like a cumulative budget available. And so I think that, Maria, you were out of the room, but I'm trying to piece together just some deliverables, accomplishments that have been made with the funding. I think it's having that available, and I think it's being able to be snappy with those answers.
Yeah.
That, hey,
Right.
this is, we did this, so we did that, this is what we're doing.
right,
And, and being confident that you've spent, in a productive way.
Right.
So you have, 127 events.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Right.
right. I'm just
And-
thinking in terms of public improvements.
Yeah.
And more economic development, I think we,
Yeah.
the thing with economic development is what's driving everything is the wastewater,
Mhm.
just making sure that
Yeah.
we're prepared.
But I think like having Jay
Yeah, that
in
was very
today,
helpful.
it's good timing because it's good
I don't-
queuing and looking ahead. Folks are gonna wanna avail themselves of some of
Yeah,
those
I mean-
services.
This town has been waiting for so long to,
Right.
and yet the wastewater is interesting. I mean, it's an interesting notion that it will attract business, economic development. I'm not personally convinced, or I have a good feeling about, not just a good feeling, good understanding about how much that is. But I do hope that we start considering what we can do to energize that economic development that is now more interested because of the wastewater. So that's gonna take some work, that's gonna take some alignment with what Bill has been developing and the businesses that he says he's been talking to. I mean, that's all great and good, but it would be very nice if we were privy to, we don't need the names, but at least the type, how many employees they're gonna generate, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So maybe that's something that we can have. There's nothing that precludes this organization going to executive session, is there not? Because it could be deemed confidential information.
It needs to be on an agenda.
Yeah, no, I didn't, I said that, no, I didn't. Yes,
I
on the
didn't-
agenda, but we would go into executive session to,
For one of the appropriate reasons.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but has this
I honestly can't, what reason would be,
well, it would be to
Would
have a
there be?
conversation with a private business.
I think if we were negotiating something, you do, but it's one of those 10 reasons. And
Yes,
in
okay.
general, it's
Yes.
personnel, it's union contracts, it's when we're, buying a piece
Yes,
of
but
land.
Yeah.
I'm talking about proprietary and confidential information that would, but that would probably have, I can sort, you know what, I can sort that out. But what I would be interested in to help me do my job better here is to have a better understanding of what businesses are actually currently interested.
Yeah.
And then that would lead to, so who else do we have to
Yeah.
attract?
Mm.
Maybe,
Yeah.
Steve, what
Okay.
about you guys are part of the, I don't know, the phase 1 futures and
Yarmouth
the other
Partnership.
chamber, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an appropriate conversation for you guys to have with that group. No,
I just wrote,
it's hard with, I think we don't all want to be doing the same things.
no, I don't think we're going to be. I think part of what's going to be done is the master plan.
Mhm,
That's going to be a higher up version of where the town's headed, right?
mhm,
You call it the comprehensive plan, I call it the master plan, but
mhm.
at the same time, there's the work that's ongoing with what Bill is doing with the wastewater. That's going to generate some activity, but understanding that wastewater project is on probably an intermediate timeline. And that leads me to the next thing, and that's the chamber and what they're doing to initiate some energizing of the businesses while that's ongoing,
Yeah,
right? So,
yeah, and
That's
saving
what
the
we're saying.
ones that are just gonna on the edge, right?
So-
Keeping them going.
so the chamber will give us some ideas. The master plan will give us some ideas. Again, that's probably on a 1-year timeline. When you get that done, 2 years. So between now and probably 5 years, there's any number of ways we're gonna get some projects that this committee can make some recommendations on, along with what Jay gave us some good information on. It could happen faster than what's going to happen with the wastewater. As I see it.
If I could make a suggestion,
Yes, sir.
why don't we, as a committee, try to add a third submittal before June 2nd?
Or what?
I don't know.
Well, I think there may
Try
be one
to find-
potentially.
I think we can look
with
into
the-
the local comprehensive
local-
plan. I think it's important to coordinate with the planning board. That
Yeah,
is kind
yeah.
of got the ownership on the local
Yeah.
comprehensive plan.
But I'm not suggesting that it necessarily has to be a municipal submission.
No, there's
What I'm saying is maybe we can look for someone that we can
Right.
Mhm,
Right.
help avail themselves of what we were just presented. That doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Yarmouth,
Yeah,
but
the town.
could really help a local business owner.
Yeah.
Why don't we
I agree.
try to
Mhm.
focus? Because that's, I mean,
And
we
that's-
all know that everyone's focused on a very specific set of priorities that we're not necessarily a part of, and we don't necessarily need to be a part of it. But to your point, and the points that have been made several times, why don't we take our resources that we have here and at this table, and try to see if we can raise the profile of something else that can be done, and it can be made an example of, like we talked about this, the underutilized property. We're not looking to change things overnight, but a nice pilot or a feeling of a pilot, I think could go a long way.
And Karen
answer.
sent you a link that I had sent her to the One Stop site, and if you go on that link, it'll list all the available programs. It's really very
Mhm.
apparent. If you just look at the titles, you'll go, oh, that looks interesting. So, and I certainly would like to see our storefront facade program get up and running. I understand Barnstable got one approved.
Oh, we
and,
didn't really get that answer from him.
It would be, oh, yeah, well, we'll
We
find
can
out.
get- we can get it.
But I mean, it would, again, put a pilot, put a marker, we're starting to do stuff. And I think doing something
I mean, just the knowledge that
a little different would be helpful.
that restaurant project down the street is
Collaborative.
considered a collaborative workspace.
I didn't
Is
know about that.
I was
Can we get the
thinking
money?
that it strictly had to be a Cape space type of a model, but
Mhm.
that sort of opens up the door to a lot of things that, you know, the caveat, I think, the thing he stressed several times was that it needs to have some sort of a public purpose behind it.
Mhm.
But I think that that's kind of a
Yeah.
broad,
Well, there's a
Umbrella,
fantastic one
too.
in New Bedford. And it really runs the gamut. It's from inventors to artists to writers to, and it's young people, it's established, it's a think tank, it's a product innovation. So if you Google New Bedford, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. What we
Even,
need
do you
to
know anything
is-
about the one in Harwich? At
No.
the school? I went over there years ago and it's nice. It's small,
The-
it's very low key. But it was in the school and there was, you know, artists and other sorts of makers and things like that. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, like they want to
It was
have a 3D
interesting.
printer, you know?
Yeah.
well, I think that it probably makes some sense as much as you've expressed your lack of clarity on how the sewer pipe's going to change the fortunes of Route 28. I think, you know, you don't need a crystal ball, I think, but, you know, there's a study, it's not too old, that puts a number on it of 100 million, but I think that that's ridiculous, because I think it's
Yeah, that's the one.
way
Yeah.
bigger than that.
I've read it.
But we also know what we know about the timing of it. If we vote yes on the 25th, which for anyone that watches this, please vote yes. Not that they'll be watching it later, but it's gonna take, we're not gonna break ground until the fall. They're gonna have to build a plant, they're gonna have to put pipes in the ground. So
It takes
we
time.
what I'm trying to say is that we don't necessarily have to disregard properties that either we think are going to be ripe for that type of activity in the future, because that hasn't manifested yet. Why not pursue it now as not necessarily an interim approach, but we don't even have to look at the dilapidated or badly dilapidated. We can look at the ones that are going to remain that are still potentially underutilized. And
I think we need to like explore things along White's Path and up Forest Road, because
Mhm.
you know what's gonna happen during construction? Nobody's gonna get to the businesses along Route 28. So we have to be thinking, you know, the timing of everything, right? So, yeah, we got this grand thing. Well, let's focus, we can't just focus on Route 28 is my statement, and that's because there are a lot of construction will be happening in the interim. And as Joe just mentioned, it's not happening tomorrow or in 4 years or.
Well,
I mean, I don't know if, go ahead, Steve.
no, I
Sorry.
was gonna say, how do we, I'm trying to get your idea out in another way, and that is, how do we do? We want to set up a subcommittee here, do we want to go off on our own, come back and report on some projects? Or do we want to meet with the chamber? I know you're meeting with Mary tomorrow, maybe we meet with the chamber too. All three of those to get some ideas on, I like your idea.
I mean,
about the project, so.
I don't know if it's been done in the past, and I don't know if it qualifies as a meeting, but why can't we go on the road? Like, why can't
We
the
can,
committee
we just have to
go on the road?
expressly say what the purpose is.
Yeah.
And
Well,
no deliberation.
do you just want to go visit businesses?
No, I
Or
don't
what do you-
necessarily.
What's your roadshow?
In my mind, I think of an alternate meeting site
Mhm.
that we could use to highlight a need. And maybe invite them that way, and maybe it's not having to come here and sit in this
Mhm.
particular room that they either have a lot of familiarity with to whatever positive or negative thoughts they have, or they don't have any
Mhm.
familiarity with it at all and don't know that we can help. So you've made the point several times that going out and introducing ourselves to the community might gin up some energy that we can either then foster and then try to help with, or they could take it on their own. I mean, there's gonna be business owners that are gonna be like, you're kidding
As
me? I
long
could-
as you have a
There's free
public,
money?
if you want it to be a CEDC meeting, all you need to do is make sure it's publicly accessible and notice the meeting and
I mean, if we,
record the, not, you don't even have to record the meeting, but someone has to go and take minutes. Take the notes and
Yeah.
produce the
I'm not-
minutes.
I think
I'm not
I think it's a great idea. Can we start, I would think, attending, a chamber meeting?
Yeah, I think it starts with the chamber.
yeah, I mean,
That good?
we're there.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm generally not, well, that's not the truth. I'm gonna say something that's a lie. So I am in favor of stunts. Right? So I'm in favor of stunts because I do a lot of them and they're very effective.
That's all right.
So
I hear what you're saying.
Mark-
why
Stunts.
don't we have a meeting in an abandoned storefront?
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
but
It's completely preposterous, but
no, it's
we
not.
could publicize it
Or-
and say the CEDC is meeting in this abandoned storefront
So,
to talk about abandoned storefronts.
okay, and then what's the next step after that? That's what I guess,
He just wants to,
right? Then we gotta have a next step is what I'm.
Well,
I agree, I'm with
we've
you.
got a pilot.
Yeah,
you know, all the projects that they listed in the wastewater application, that we reviewed
Yeah.
the meeting before, so maybe we go to one of those sites, because that's already publicly
I'm gonna,
advertised, right?
I like Joe's idea. I'm gonna suggest something. Why don't we set up a offline call and just think our way through this a little bit. I like that idea of meeting at an abandoned site. I just want to have a roadmap for what the next steps are in terms of, is it a tax title property? Do we want it to be a tax title property? Does the private owner of that property want to do something with it, work with us? After, upon hearing some of the information that we heard today, that he could avail or she could avail themselves to? I just want to work our way through that, so.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree, and I'm not saying that I have all the answers, but we've got to jumpstart it somehow.
Yep.
Some way.
To
You're coming too, take minutes.
actually to
Those minutes
comply,
cost a
to
lot.
comply with the open meeting law. If we all,
terrible
I
use of
know,
my
we
time.
all wanted to share our thoughts, we have to funnel them in through Karen.
Yep, yep, agreed.
And the alternative, it really isn't an alternative, unless we all come up at the next meeting, we say, or at some point, we all come up with our own lists and then we see. I'll get a whiteboard and we'll see
Do-
how many of us all
There's a
agree, right?
Why don't we do that?
Just have a workshop meeting.
Yeah.
At your next meeting.
Yeah.
On the topic and
But-
figure it out and invite whoever you want to come.
No, but before that, let's all go through and pick out some properties that we think,
Well,
go ahead.
if I,
Yeah, go
shouldn't
ahead.
we work off of the maps that's already been done?
The vacant storefront.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
properties have already been identified. I mean, it doesn't. One vacant storefront looks like the other.
It's not
but-
very extensive, is it? I mean, there's not that many properties either.
No,
I get-
On
in the
it.
last meeting, Mary said that there were a couple more being added to the list.
Isn't the
few
old,
more.
the old Widow restaurant, isn't that part of the vacant storefront down by the intersection?
The
28,
widow restaurant.
No, I don't
Across
think
from-
so.
the Riverway?
Oh, no, it's
Olympia?
occupied.
No, it's not.
Is it Olympia?
Olympia,
No, on the other side.
the Rooster?
Our
You know that-
Carluccio's is moving out.
Carluccio's?
Oh, Carluccio's.
Are they moving
Carluccio's to the
Yeah.
right of
Oh, I hadn't heard
Carluccio's,
that.
that strip is abuts
go
another property that's been
to
abandoned
this
for
plaza.
years. And I only know,
I don't think that was on it.
Oh, somewhere.
anyway, Maria's got a map, so
Yeah.
she's already done this work, so let's pick one of those spots.
Okay, all right.
I know we can find something that's can be dramatically stunty.
Okay. You know what? I
And
know
what-
who I'm gonna call, and because you obviously have to arrange it. but-
And I don't, what would you suggest? We need to tell people we're gonna pull a stunt?
Oh,
I think you should figure out like what your,
No,
the end goal
I'm
is here.
stipulating to all
Yes.
that.
I,
Stipulating
because
to all that.
I'm
yes.
not
just saying,
fully
we-
clear on where you're going,
I-
We-
just to be honest.
I am, so yes, I
So,
think, yes, the people have to be notified, I think.
And I don't disagree. That's why I was bringing it up, because
Yeah.
we went off sort of on our own and issued a press release and we got into a lot of trouble. And I don't want to go anywhere near that again.
You're talking about funding allocations.
I'm just talking about the committee acting on its own
Well, I think
thoughts.
that if you're. I mean, I think that's okay. But I think that
Because I came,
you're
like
not
Maria, I came here to
you're not
act.
executing any contracts. But if you're going somewhere, you're obviously gonna
Right.
get the okay with the property owner before you go advertise a meeting at their place. And you better have
Absolutely.
parking and you better have, publicly
Zoom-
accessible.
Zoom
Yes, no, I
access
get
and
it.
all of that.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's
So-
think it through. I think
But for the
you're
next
saying
meeting,
it, you like the idea, you like the concept.
yes,
I like the concept.
yes.
Now we have to
Joe.
put, Joe likes the concept. So in order to
You're
make
coming.
a working concept, we need
We'll
to go
check
home
the
and kind
calendar.
of figure out how it might work.
Right.
And you know who would have great ideas? I bet Mary would have a great
Well,
ideas.
that,
Yeah.
yes, and then let's get the map and we make sure we have the addresses on the map.
Yeah, I think I.
You got
have
that,
it.
you have that, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then we can, at the next meeting, we can talk about what properties we want to look at, visit, and then behind that, we can figure out what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do with these properties?
Mhm.
Well,
What are the tools that are available in that toolbox that we learned about
Mhm.
today that could work for
Mhm.
that property?
I mean, it's trending. The money's trending, so. To your point, everyone's point, we have to do something or someone's gonna notice.
well,
Yeah,
the rate we're going with inflation will be a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
You can say that. Did I say that?
you okay?
Oh,
I'm fine. I'm just following you guys' lead on that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
can you just, I think it would be number 6, like who and how many people would benefit from the improvement. It may be hidden there.
Okay.
Somewhere in here, but,
That's fine.
you
Yeah.
know. Biggest impact.
Well, back up one second. So Karen spent some time on this thing and I think it's a good idea to get it out. So number one, everyone has a crack at it. Number two is we can see what impact it has, the project may have on economic development, right? So,
Don't you think we need to explain? Though, money is available, there's, the CEDC is available money. They are interested in your feedback about what projects you have. What are we gonna do once we get these?
well, we're gonna have to sit down, and go over each one and marry it up to our requirements, the state requirements. To see
So
if it
in-
fits or it doesn't fit. And then
Sarah-
after that, there's gotta
Yeah,
be some
Sarah,
tieback.
yeah.
There's gotta be some
So,
tieback.
so
to-
in general, I
Yeah.
mean, you have the special legislation that says what you can do with the money, okay? Big chunk of it is physical improvement. There's some description in there around what that means. It's public improvements, including beautification, recreational resources, public improvements related to the mutual needs of visitors and residents with a balance available for marketing, blah, blah, blah. But, so you have that piece of information. We know from the budget that you've got 232,886 today with an additional 175 coming in on July 1
Right.
for a total of $408,000.
This is gonna go to your department head, is it not?
I'm gonna send this out to division and department heads. So these are the, so,
Okay, so with that, okay, so
Yeah.
let me clarify. You're gonna send an email that says.
Yeah.
We have this money.
Yep.
We're gonna look at it. CEDC is going to. So here's my other question though. Is this just an expression of interest
Well,
and then
this-
we're going to have them dig into the dollars?
we're on the same page because this was why I wanted to bring it to the committee. So I think like, because I wanted to know, how do you want me to present this to people? Because it's not a particularly heavy lift. I know that you're gonna get some people who are uber prepared and you're gonna get a big packet with a lot of backup. And those will probably be the ones with the biggest asks. And then there may be other people, I think, and it was the list, I don't know if
Yeah,
I
I know
still
we-
have it, up there. These were just past things.
Right, but when
Um,
Jeff was here, he mentioned a couple of projects.
Right, and
that he would be
the-
interested in.
These are the past things, so this doesn't have, we have the Sandy Pond, Amanda Lima is working hard on that, town engineer. She had, already submitted a letter asking, for consideration and that she'd follow up
Oh,
with more information. We tried to
About the
talk about that a
bathrooms?
couple times, yeah, about the bathrooms. The drive-in site will come in, I think things like invasive species removals. Those are really good projects because they have big impacts on places for
so your
the
question
town.
was.
I may have a couple asks.
Are we seeking
We need to
a
make sure that
general
we
sort of
get our
letter,
name on whatever we do.
interest of project?
Even if it's
Or we,
DPW,
or number 10 is
sponsored
that,
by-
if you have detailed information, please submit it?
Yeah, I think you can be informal because we're not putting this out to bid. And so you can do it like this, and then what I'd suggest, this is what we do with Community Preservation Act applications is, and it's not different than the special events. That you take them, you look at them, what questions do you have, this, that, the other thing, and then we invite everybody in and they make their pitch to you, and then you can decide what you want to do.
Is this excluding public suggestions? Suggestions from the public?
If you want to go out to the public, we have to go through the bid process and put together a bid package. It has to go through
No,
public procurement.
No, I wasn't meaning the public asking for money. I was meaning the public suggesting things the things they would like to see.
Say Jeff came in and wants to do some work on Parker's Rivers Bridge.
Yeah,
Did he get some input at somewhere along the line from the public saying, I want decorative streetlights put up on the bridge? That type of thing?
yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I think
I
that,
mean,
this is what I wouldn't, I would prefer. So if I'm putting my town staff hat on
yep,
and everybody's got
please.
long lists of
Be honest,
projects
be
and
honest,
things
yeah.
like that. We've got everything that's already in the capital budget, all the asks. DNR is doing a bunch of stuff that's really great. Things like that. I think that it's public, we can ask for input, but I think that adding new projects and changing directions can be hazardous to the ongoing projects. And we get criticized all the time for not getting things done in timely manners. It's good to kind of stay the course.
Projects that are related to economic development,
Right.
very clear.
Number 7.
But I think, and I think about tourism, I can tell you right now, we, things that I could imagine bringing up. The invasive species, we got to get those West Yarmouth parks done in the Yankee Village and everything. That's going to cost money.
Yeah, okay.
gonna cost more than we got.
I don't disagree with that. I don't
Mhm.
disagree with that. The feedback we get from Jeff all the time, well, no one wants to do it. Well, then he uses some help. You're talking about knocking down.
I'm not
some-
talking about, I'm talking about the redevelopment of those parks
Oh, okay,
into
I'm
the
sorry.
one.
I missed that.
So we're going to be working with coastal engineering, master plan, all the permitting, and then we're going to have to go out to bid and get the park built. So projects like that.
Yeah.
What part?
Where the Yankee Village was and where Chasebrook Park and Mill Creek Park are, opposite
Yeah.
the
I know,
Acme
yeah,
Laundry.
Yeah,
That one. The stuff going on at Sandy Pond. The,
I
don't know,
can get
just-
behind that
just a
stuff
bunch of
all day
things.
long.
right.
Yeah.
It's all good stuff. It's all good stuff that's in the
Brings
queue.
people in.
And if we're gonna add
Yeah.
to the list, then the stuff that's in the queue won't get done.
Okay,
Can't do it all at once.
No, I don't.
I know it sounds whiny.
That's a
but
great suggestion
it's-
because I don't see why we
it's how
shouldn't
it
be
is.
looking at piggybacking on stuff that's already
Right.
going on that
Yeah.
needs help.
It looks good.
Right, of course.
And
We're
then you
pulling on the
have,
same rope.
right,
That's what we all want to do.
okay.
I'm not trying to
We'll
make
do this.
more.
You good?
so I'll prepare more of a instruction, I think like a month. So it'll be,
Yeah, they all have to get through.
Like we gotta get through town meeting. Nothing's gonna happen in the next, other than town meeting
Town
stuff.
employees aren't gonna have anything to do after the 25th, though. Get
Right.
wastewater pass, everybody's all taking
right.
vacation.
Anyways, but maybe we do it so that we have the applications due before Memorial Day. I can't believe it's gonna be Memorial Day.
Yeah, I think so.
And then have a meeting. And then when do you want your next meeting to be? I would recommend after town
After
meeting.
town meeting.
Town meeting for everybody's information is the 25th.
25th, yeah.
The warrant is online.
Mhm.
There's some new wastewater information rolling out.
There's a wastewater meeting tomorrow.
That's
I mean,
right.
Wednesday.
Oh,
Yeah,
which
Thursday.
day is it? It's the
Thursday.
13th, whatever day that is.
Thursday.
Oh, I'm stealing one of these things here.
How
It's
does?
Thursday.
How does May 9th look? 4 o'clock?
How's that for you? Well,
I'm
okay,
checking.
check with the boss. or-
I'm not as. I'm not as fast.
Gives you enough
Can you
time?
go Monday? That week instead?
Yeah.
Monday, the 8th?
Yep.
I just have to find a room.
Monday the 8th, okay, everyone?
Yeah.
Thank you for
Are we-
accommodating the last lacrosse season of my,
Oh,
Be like,
of my daughter's, well,
All right.
high school career. 4 o'clock works, because we
Yep.
kind of stuck with that.
yeah, 4 o'clock.
Does it work?
it's fine.
Okay, super. Maybe we'll be celebrating.
What do you mean, maybe?
You're gonna.
We will be celebrating.
Thank you.
Good night.
Are you making cookies?
I don't think.
The
I'll make some
wastewater vote, Maria.
All right, so
I
you're,
would rather just upgrade my.
we're good with the,
So
I already
Unbelievable.
got a price,
Unbelievable.
my opinion.
we're all good with this letter, subject to those changes, Maria. We're good? Ready?
For the form?
Yes, so,
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna add more detail and be more
she's
prescriptive
fine.
and, yeah,
all right. Thank you for
we'll
that.
cherry it up.
So we got, next up is committee member updates. So, Maria?
Oh, well, we're gonna get together and finally sit down and go through the application for the special events.
Okay,
But
Good.
I think we know what our task is.
Good.
We actually, I don't think, we know what our task is.
okay. Joe?
I gave what I had earlier about Representative Flanagan.
Okay. And I'm all set, nothing new from me. Staff updates,
You've got it all out of me already.
you get it. Okay, we have
Crash.
minutes.
The caffeine is crashing.
Hmm?
The caffeine crash.
Caffeine wearing off.
Well, yeah, I left it on my desk.
So we don't have minutes.
No minutes
No
today.
minutes.
Did not get to the minutes.
All right. And any upcoming meetings, agenda items?
Oh,
There's
you know what I wanted to.
Meeting on the
We
13th
got that. We got the April 25th.
and the April 25th town meeting.
Yeah. And our meeting, next meeting is February 8th, right?
May.
May 8th, I'm sorry. February. Jeez. What am I doing? What am I doing?
Aren't you in Arizona in February?
Yeah. Yeah. I was, thank you.
Could I bring up one new old business?
Yes, sirree.
We have a underrepresented committee here.
Yes.
I swung and missed at a couple people,
Oh, it's too bad.
but this might be something that we could couple with a stunt. To just let people know. I mean, you have to dig pretty hard to find empty seats on the committee, on the website. And if we can, let them know that we're not just sitting here rubber stamping wastewater and
Yeah.
the Seaside Festival, and we've got other things going on, then maybe we could garner some interest in getting some representatives
Yeah.
to the table here.
Yeah.
I mean, I can ask Pam in the town administrator's office
Yes.
what there is. I do it
From
periodically,
submissions,
yeah. But if if there's people that you have in mind,
I
I'd
do, right?
encourage them to
Yeah.
submit talent bank
Yeah.
forms.
I'm waiting to hear back from a lady that
Okay,
I
super,
interviewed last week,
Should.
and she seemed very interested in it. She was gonna
great,
take some time and get back to me, and so that's still
super,
a possibility.
We have two positions that are open.
Yes.
too.
Now, does one of them, since the chamber isn't one, that get replaced with a business person or just a
That's-
regular?
That's what I.
So one of them's that specific to a business person and one's just general.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, because we have the planning board representative, Jim Saban. Yeah, so good. So, yeah, if you can check with the town.
Will do.
Karen, and I'll check and get back to everybody on that.
And I never see anything on like Facebook about open committees. or
That's a good
anything-
suggestion,
Or
Jeff.
anything like that. We can't be the only open
we're not,
committee.
We're not, we're not.
Embrace social media.
May not. All right, that's it. Got a motion? We have a second?
second,
And we need a roll call?
Maria, yes?
Joe, yes. Joe Gibbs, yes.
Joe Manning, yes.
Leo, yes. We adjourned.
Thank you,
Beautiful.
Karen.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so everybody go and look at those one stop and you're gonna be. And here's the other trick. If you look at who got the awards the year before, then you'll know.
What
makes
they
sense.
like.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then all you have to do is